Greenland is a vast, almost entirely uninhabited and undeveloped territory that's sitting undefended in a key strategic location between the United States, Russia, and China. That's exactly where it is, right smack in the middle. Wasn't important nearly when we gave it back. When we gave it back, it wasn't the same as it is now. It's not important for any other reason, everyone talks about the minerals. There's so many there's no rare earth, no such thing as rare earth. There's rare processing, but there's so much rare earth. And to get to this rare earth, you got to go through hundreds of feet of ice. That's not the reason we need it. We need it for strategic national security and international security. This enormous unsecured island is actually part of North America, on the northern frontier of the Western Hemisphere. That's our territory. It is therefore a core national security interest of the United States of America. And in fact, it's been our policy for hundreds of years to prevent outside threats from entering our hemisphere, and we've done it very successfully. We've never been stronger than we are now. That's why American presidents have sought to purchase Greenland for nearly 2 centuries. For 2 centuries, they've been trying to do it. They should have kept it after World War II, but they had a different president. That's all right. People think differently. Much more necessary now than it was at that time, however. In 2019, Denmark said that they would spend over $200 million to strengthen Greenland's defenses. But as you know, they spent less than 1% of that amount. 1%. There's no sign of Denmark there. And I say that with great respect for Denmark, whose people I love, whose leaders are very good. It's the United States alone that can protect this giant mass of land, this giant piece of ice, develop it and improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us. And that's the reason I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States.
Hello, Bobby Jones here from MeidasTouch and Valor Media Networks. This week, President Donald Trump once again raised the prospect of the United States acquiring Greenland at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. This is not the first time he's done so, but in 2026, the issue has returned with more urgency, more public pressure, and more international concern. The administration has framed the effort as a strategic and economic necessity, pointing to Arctic security, global competition, and resource access. What's striking, however, is not simply the proposal itself, but the mindset behind it. Trump's approach to Greenland reflects the same instincts, assumptions, and misjudgment that have characterized many of his past real estate ventures. And it highlights a deeper problem: the belief that international relations operate like New York real estate deals, where everything has a price, leverage solves resistance, and no is just a starting position. That belief has repeatedly failed him in business. Now it's colliding with geopolitical reality. First, let's start with the obvious. Greenland is not a property. Greenland is an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. It has its own government, its own parliament, and a population with a distinct cultural and political identity. Danish and Greenlandic leaders have been unequivocal. Greenland is not for sale. Its sovereignty is not negotiable. Yet the Trump administration has continued to pressure for what it calls a framework for acquisition, while simultaneously applying economic and diplomatic pressure. Tariff threats, security leverage, and public messaging have all been used to reframe the issue as a deal waiting to be closed. This framing reveals the core misunderstanding. Nations and their territories are not assets. Sovereignty is not a line item, and strategic partnerships are not purchase agreements. But you see, all of this is not some miscalculation or misunderstanding. It follows a pattern visible throughout Trump's business career. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Trump pursued large, highly visible projects built on aggressive leverage and optimistic assumptions. The Trump Taj Mahal Casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey, was marketed as a transformational property, the largest and most opulent casino in the world. But it was financed with unsustainable debt and collapsed into bankruptcy within a year. Trump's shuttle followed a similar logic. He acquired an airline not by fixing its operational weaknesses, but by rebranding it with luxury aesthetics and his name. The fundamentals did not change, and of course, the business failed. Trump University relied almost entirely on branding, selling the promise of Trump's success rather than delivering substantive educational value. That venture ended in litigation and a multi-million-dollar settlement. In each case, the underlying mistake was the same: confusing visibility with viability, branding with value, and leverage with control. The Greenland proposal reflects that same logic, scaled up to the level of international relations. Trump has repeatedly described Greenland in transactional terms: its size, its location, its resources, its strategic value. Those factors are real. The Arctic matters. Security competition does matter. Resource access, in fact, matters. But Trump's approach treats these realities as justifications for acquisition rather than cooperation. In real estate, a desirable location creates bargaining power. In geopolitics, a desirable location creates shared responsibility. The United States already has military access in Greenland. It already cooperates with Denmark through NATO. None of those arrangements require changing of borders or sovereignty. By insisting on ownership rather than partnership, the administration has turned a security discussion into now a deepening sovereignty crisis. This is not deal making. This is misreading the room and misunderstanding what alliance actually means. In business negotiations, refusal is often strategic. A seller may say no to raise the price, slow the process, or to test resolve. Trump built a career assuming resistance could be overcome through pressure or persistence. International relations do not work that way. When Denmark and Greenland say no, they are not posturing. They are asserting legal, political, and moral boundaries. Ignoring that distinction undermines trust, not just with Denmark, but with allies who are watching extremely closely. In this case, pressure has produced the opposite of leverage. It has triggered public backlash, protests in Greenland, and concern amongst European partners about America's reliability and intent. What might be considered hard bargaining in real estate becomes destabilizing coercion in diplomacy. And this leads us to the cost of overconfidence. Trump's business career shows that confidence untethered from reality can be expensive. In business, the cost was often borne by lenders, partners, and or customers. In geopolitics, the costs are much broader. They include strained alliances, weakened credibility, and the erosion of norms that protect smaller nations from pressure by larger ones. They also include domestic consequences, which can be seen in congressional resistance, legal barriers, and public skepticism. No president can unilaterally acquire foreign territory. Any such move would require congressional approval, treaty negotiations, and the consent of the people who actually live there. Treating Greenland as a deal waiting to happen ignores those constraints, just as Trump once ignored financial fundamentals in favor of optimism and branding. And this leads to the big comparison point. The world is not New York real estate. There's a fundamental difference between buying property and leading a global power. Real estate rewards risk-taking, leverage, and persistence. Diplomacy rewards restraint, legitimacy, and trust. In New York, power comes from capital and branding. In international affairs, power comes from alliances, law, and credibility. Trump's Greenland efforts expose what happens when those two worlds are misconstrued and greatly confused. It's not simply about Greenland. It's about whether the United States views leadership as ownership or as stewardship. President Trump's renewed attempt to acquire Greenland in 2026 is best understood not as a strategic breakthrough, but as a familiar pattern repeating itself on a larger scale. It reflects a belief that everything has a price, that pressure produces compliance, and that scale itself creates value. It also reveals President Trump's fundamental way of seeing the world, completely transactional. That belief has repeatedly failed in Trump's business history. There is no reason to expect it to succeed in international politics. The world is not Manhattan, nor its real estate market. Sovereignty is not a development opportunity, and leadership cannot be purchased. Trump's business beliefs used to be constrained to primarily those people that lived in New York and New Jersey. Those contractors, customers, and lenders suffered the price of his miscalculations. And now the world is having to deal with similar effects. Greenland is not for sale. Its people are not for sale. But most importantly, its sovereignty is not for sale. And the longer the Trump administration continues to pursue Greenland in any other way, continues to weaken the world's greatest alliance and allowing those who want to see NATO fall the strategic and eventually tactical advantage.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.